In this speech, I will talk about referendums. I'll talk a bit about referendums in Switzerland, and I'll talk a bit about referendums in the United Kingdom or the UK. I will also mention fake news. This speech will start in a few moments. Switzerland is known for many things: beautiful mountains, wonderful chocolate, and their financial services. But what you may not know about Switzerland is that they really, really like their referendums. Since the Constitution of 1848, Switzerland have had 550 referendums, a staggering amount, quite frankly. In the year 2018 alone, there were 10, and last year when I was living there were 3. And I remember when I was living in Switzerland, more specifically in Bern, that my housemates would receive these huge, thick envelopes stuffed full of information about how to vote, the different sides of the argument, and of course their ballot papers. And they received those at least twice when I was there for those short 9 months. And when you start to look at Switzerland's political system, it becomes a lot easier to understand why they have so many referendums at all. Switzerland is considered to be quite a unique democracy in comparison to others, as it combines direct democracy and representative democracy. And this is important because in a direct democracy, any citizen can challenge any law that their government proposes. And any citizen can also propose changes to constitutions. And there are several different ways in which this can be done. This can be done through mandatory referendums, through optional referendums, and through popular initiatives. The first involves referendums being held on modifications to the constitution made by, in Switzerland's case, the Federal Assembly. The second allows citizens to oppose a law accepted by the Federal Assembly, but these people, these opposers, then need 50,000 signatures to back them up. The third, the popular initiative, is where at least 100,000 signatures are needed from citizens to back a change to the constitution at a federal, cantonal or municipal level. It's quite a lot to get your head around, and the system is certainly a lot different to referendums held in my home country, the United Kingdom. The UK has only held 3 nationwide referendums since the beginning of the 20th century, though this is not including 11 referendums held in the constituent countries, England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, for example. So, for example, one of the more local referendums would be the Scottish independence referendum, which was held in 2014, and there have been other referendums in devolution. So aside from the fact that the UK has only had a few referendums, I can certainly think of several differences between Swiss and British referendums, for example. And the main difference that comes to my mind is how information about the referendum is diffused. As I mentioned, in Switzerland, you receive this package, and which contains all the information about the proposed changes to the law. And it also contains factual information provided by the federal government, and it also contains texts from the opposing sides that you can make your own choice about what you want to vote for. And as I also mentioned earlier, there is a ballot paper in there which you can either post back or which you can take to the ballot box. And this was certainly not the case in the UK in 2016. For many, the 2016 Brexit referendum was marred by so-called fake news. I'm sure it's a phrase you've heard before, but just in case you haven't, fake news is a form of news, consisting of deliberate disinformation or hoaxes spread via traditional media, such as printed newspapers or even on the television, or nowadays, more the case on online social media. And the aim of fake news is to damage someone or something for political or financial gain by misleading people with this fake news or falsehoods. And it's definitely not a new phenomenon. It's probably been around for a couple of 100 years at least. But the speed at which we can now share information and the speed at which this fake news can be disseminated is much, much quicker than it ever has been, and is much, much more of a problem for democracy and for politics. And when we look at the Brexit campaign, there was some notable examples of what we could consider to be fake news, and the speed at which they were spread was quite staggering, really. There was one side was saying that if we left the European Union, then there'd be hundreds of millions of extra pounds for our public services. There was disinformation about migration, and there was also fake news from both sides about each other. Very, very confusing time, very confusing situation for everyone. And for the Brexit referendum, and actually for the Scottish referendum, I was abroad both times, and I'm starting to think I should not go abroad when there's a referendum, or I should not go abroad because there might be a referendum. But when I was abroad, I didn't receive any information at all. Neither did my parents or my friends. We didn't receive any information which could consider to be impartial about the Brexit referendum. Rather, you had to wade through this quagmire of fake and truthful news. And then, a few years later, I heard that a few years after the Brexit referendum, more recently, I heard that in Switzerland, a referendum result was overturned by the Swiss Supreme Court because they had decided that voters had been poorly informed, as information provided by the federal government was deemed to be incomplete, and they had actually given the wrong number or something in the information booklet, just one number, and they decided to overturn a whole referendum result, which I found very interesting. So I've talked a little bit about the differences between these referendums, but are there any similarities between Swiss and UK referendums? Do they have anything in common? Well, they do actually. The one thing that Swiss and British referendums have in common, and more so more recent referendums, is the ability to give the EU a bit of a headache. Switzerland is currently having its own Brexit moment, according to some media, and is being dubbed this as one of the far-right parties, the People's Party, have launched a referendum campaign to end the free movement of citizens from the EU to Switzerland. And a binding referendum is due to take place this year in May, though, according to an online survey of about 11,000 people, 60% of those people were opposed to the referendum, which is good news, hopefully. And the Swiss government themselves are also battling against this campaign because they want to improve their relationship with the European Union. One of the reasons they want to improve it is because they've been digging in their heels with regards to a new treaty that the EU would like Switzerland to agree to, and this new treaty would make Switzerland adopt single market rules, and this delay in signing the agreement has caused a row, obviously, and the row has been caused over cross-border stock trading, which isn't very helpful for anyone. And there are some people which believe that this pact would impact on Swiss sovereignty, which was also an argument for the Brexit referendum, and that's why the referendum would never pass. And on the other side with the UK, I don't think I need to explain how much grief Brexit has caused the European Union over the last few years, and will probably continue to do so in the future while the trade deal is hammered out. But at the end of the day, if we look at Swiss and British referendums, I don't think receiving an information pack would have changed much about the British referendum, about the Brexit referendum in the UK. And just because I feel like there was too much interference from fake news spread by media outlets, by individuals, by politicians. And I can only hope that if there are any referendums in the future in the UK, that they are better organised and that they focus more on facts rather than fiction.